Hello, Haunted Family. Welcome back. Story 1. Death isn't the end. My father had a twin sister, who they called May. She passed when she was 4 years old. One day, while out on her swing, she told my father that she was going to go on a very long journey soon. She died the next week. My father's dad was dying from cancer at the age of 65. Shortly before his death, he told everyone that his daughter-in-law, his parents, and many others who had passed over were waiting in the room for him. He kept asking everyone if they saw them too. We, of course, didn't. I had a 7-year-old cousin who told her mother that she'd be leaving on a trip soon. 1 week later, she died unexpectedly. Years later, when that cousin's sister, Joan, was sick in the hospital, she told everyone that her sister had come to visit her and was waiting for her to join them. She died shortly later from cancer. When my own father was dying from cancer, he had found out just months before that he had it. I went to visit him on a Monday. He was staying with my younger brother. He told me not to sit in the chair across from him because there was an animal that looked like a big rat that didn't want to be disturbed sitting in that chair. He then said, "Oh, never mind, he's left." One of my brothers used to have this dog that looked like a giant rat. And that chair had been that dog's favorite chair. My father also carried on conversations that night and into the next day with deceased friends wanting to come and visit him and wanting him to come with them. He died at 3 a.m. that Thursday morning. I know what you're thinking. He must have been on a lot of meds. But he was actually on some very low doses of things. He knew who we were, and he knew what was going on. He even explained to my son how to remove a transmission from a car, the right way, the easy way, during this time period. He didn't seem to be coming and going from consciousness like you'd think someone who was talking out of their head would be. He talked as though these people were right there with us, like we all should be able to see them. I used to work in a rehabilitation center when I got out of high school. There was one woman who was a patient there who always took very good care of herself. One morning I took her a pre-breakfast roll and coffee, and she told me she was going home that day. I didn't know anything about it, and I told her I would check at the nurse's desk. And then, if she liked, I would help her pack up her things. She smiled and said, "Oh, thank you, honey. I'd appreciate that." When I went to pick up her tray, she was laying just as I'd left her, with her eyes closed. I thought she was sleeping at first, and then I got closer. She didn't seem to be breathing. I had my blood pressure cuff and stethoscope on me, so I checked her vitals. There was none. I rang for the nurse, who verified that she had passed. She must have died shortly after I left her room, about 30 minutes before. She hadn't even touched her roll or coffee. Her coffee was still warm. She went home all right, but not the home I thought she meant. I told the nurse what she had said, and the nurse said, "Oh, that's very common in hospitals and nursing homes. Many strange and unexplained things happen here." After my father passed away, which just so happened to be the day in between my grandson and my older son's birthday, my brother died. he unexpectedly had a massive heart attack. It was the day of my daughter's birthday. I now live in his home, and things have happened here as well. That lets me know that my brother and maybe others are still here, still close to us. I just want to let everyone know not to be afraid. After doing lots of reading on the subject, I tend to agree that many spirits are here not knowing that they're gone. Some because of tragic deaths, others because they feel they've left something undone, and some just because they want to be close to their family. I live across the river from the Rock Island Arsenal. It used to be a prisoner of war camp during the Civil War. Many died here. There were battles fought all around this area. Many people have seen Civil War soldiers in their homes. Many people living here don't even realize the Civil War was fought here. Yet ghosts, spirits, and echoes from the past are all around us. Death isn't the end, and we all must die. And if there are ghosts, then our deaths are just the beginning of a new journey, a new adventure. Story 2: Childhood Ghosts. We lived abroad for a while, and then we returned home. The house we lived in after we returned to the United States was my great-grandmother's house, the house my father was born in, and my great-grandmother died in. She was my favorite person of all time. I was about 3, and I loved her so much. She couldn't see any longer, but when I crawled into bed with her, she would read me books. She always had this little dish of candy next to her bed, right next to her false teeth cup. I don't remember her dying at all. Not anything afterward or anything. I just remember her being there for my younger years, and then not being there anymore. She walked with a walker. But this also I don't remember. My older brothers do. While we were watching Saturday morning cartoons and eating our bowls of cereal, they would hear her walking into the kitchen with her walker. For a while after her death, they would hear that. I never had any experience with this, but I had several weird things happen in the house anyway. One morning I was lying in bed between my parents. It was morning, but it was bright outside. It seemed to be early-ish in the morning. My parents had a picture of Christ above their bed. They weren't overly religious. I didn't grow up in church. Anyhow, that particular morning, I heard a man call my name. I thought it was Jesus in my mind. I told my dad. He questioned my brothers, thinking it had to have been them teasing me. But it wasn't them. They swore it was not them. They were still in bed. One day when I was a little older, my best friend and her mom were watching me at their house. I wanted to go over to my house. It was just across the street. And get these 2 play sets that were my favorite. They were in the attic. And the attic was like this little trap door in the wall of my sister and my room. I opened it. I went inside just a little bit. Just far enough to grab my toys. I saw what my mind thought was a stereotypical witch. Pointy hat and all. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the weird moans coming from the depths of the closet. There was no one home. The house was empty. And it was quite comically sounding. I ran back to my friend's house and I told her mom, who came back over with me, telling me that it was probably just a mouse or something. Like that was supposed to calm me down. She searched the house and nothing. When I was 12, I was at work with my much older sister. She worked at a nursing home. We were in the kitchen. She was preparing meals, and I was sitting at the counter. I got dizzy and sort of blacked out. I had a vision. I feel kind of stupid saying that, but it's the only way I can describe it. In the vision, my great-grandmother was in the attic of the house. It was a house that we no longer lived in or owned, and hadn't for some time. She was in the attic, cowering beneath something large and dark. It upset me terribly, and I cried. My sister called my mom, and she blamed it on me being hormonal or something. I always had bad dreams about that house in particular. Dreams that involved the devil. I always had an overwhelming need to return to that house and find out what was really there. I had dreams that the devil was living in the trap door, in the floor or ceiling. I would have to try to get past it quickly. I had a reoccurring dream that I had to go down into the basement of our new house, where the devil lived in a trap door in the floor. But the floor was covered with the same carpet we had in the first house. I had so many dreams like this, of haunted houses, of possessed houses, of devils and trapdoors, and they would terrify me. I've not had these dreams as an adult, and for that I'm glad. Story 3. Grandmother's house. I have always lived in haunted houses, and I've never really told anyone about my experiences. Everyone, even strangers, have told me about theirs. Mine started when I was about 5. My brother was 8, and his were even more vivid and frightening. That was our first house. But that's not what I really want to talk about right now. We moved in with our grandparents when I was 10. She lived in this huge old farmhouse in western New York. She was a scary woman. She was very into the spirit world and mysticism. Her house was frightening from the moment I walked in. My brother didn't think so, but he was older. He had to be cool. I remember most that the upstairs was scary beyond anything I could imagine. I slept up there alone. In my room, there was this huge armoire that my brother was even terrified of. He would never look into it or walk by it if he could help it. But he refused to tell me why. To go upstairs, there's this narrow hallway that opened into a wider hall. She had a green light bulb in the hallway for some reason. There was a bedroom to the left, a storage room, where it felt like something was watching me all the time, and then a long hallway to the right that led into the big bedroom and into my room. The larger bedroom had a door to the attic. I was forbade to open that door ever. I opened that door once, and I swear I saw a man burned so badly you couldn't see his features. I shut the door and tried to put all of that out of my mind. Downstairs was the spirit room. My grandmother's mother-in-law slept there. If you slept in that room, spirits would come to you in the night and talk to you. They would tell you what was going to happen next in the family. The dining room was a safe room, if you didn't look out the windows. There was a little game room that was once part of my brother's room. It was also safe. The living room was okay, but my cat would be overly protective of you there. My brother's room was always cold, colder than the rest of the house. He was scared half to death one day. He was getting ready to go out one night, and in the corner of his room, he felt something watching him. He said it was in the corner of his ceiling. He turned on the light, and he could see a dark shadow on the ceiling. He tried to find where the shadow was coming from, but could not find a logical reason for it. Neither could my grandmother or her husband. It moved around a lot, to different corners of the room. It was always there from that day on. I would not go into his room. The cellar was puzzling. It had an odd railroad track piece. One of those heavy iron rails down there. One day my brother and grandfather came running upstairs all excited. They couldn't understand how a piece of iron that heavy, that thick, that big could have been bent into a perfect horseshoe shape. But it was. My cousin came to visit us once. I was in the house, and they had gone outside to sit by a bonfire. My grandmother was braiding my hair. The 4 boys came flying into the house hysterical. They had been telling stories about the fire, and something had came running through the woods at them, with glowing red eyes. I found out some years later that telling stories about the fire was actually them burning a Ouija board that they had been playing with earlier. The Ouija board never burned. My grandmother laughed so hard at this, but she did not let them return outside, and she sat on guard by the porch all night long. There was more stuff going on outside. There was a pond about a mile away from the house that was haunted by a lady in white. There were packs of wild dogs in the woods that were there one second, chasing you and barking and snapping at your heels, and then gone. There was a man you could see standing in the cornfields that would appear and then disappear. There was a graveyard next door that we were chased out of one night. Eventually we moved out, and I came back to visit when I was 17. My brother and his wife, they came to visit too. We stayed in different rooms this time. My brother and his wife stayed in a larger room. They were heading downstairs when my brother stopped at my door because he heard the radio on and saw a light. He knocked at the door, waited a second, and the light went out and the radio shut off. He knocked again, and there was no answer. He was a little mad because I didn't answer, and he decided to come on downstairs. Halfway down the stairs, the light came back on, and so did the radio. They came downstairs, and there I was sitting in the living room. They told me what had happened, and I went up to my room. Nothing. The light was off, so was the radio. I don't know what spirit was in my room that day, but I know she wouldn't hurt me. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to, drop me a comment down below. Bye! Music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio.